Dark Jewel of Arcanea. Chapter 3: Descent into Darkness. The sun had long set, leaving Arcanea to the mercy of its own dark desires. I navigated through the heart of the city, where the streets narrowed and the buildings leaned in, whispering secrets only the night could comprehend. This was the Undercity, where raw, unrefined magic seeped from every crack, and danger was as common as the cobblestones underfoot. My destination was an old haunt, a place where the city's pulse could be felt most strongly, the Gilded Grimoire, a tavern that served as much information as it did ale. The sign outside flickered with a spell that made its gold lettering dance in the dark, a beacon for those who sought the city's underbelly. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the murmur of spells being cast in hushed tones. I spotted my contact, a goblin named Slick, whose information was as reliable as the spells he sold under the table. He was at his usual spot, the shadows seeming to cradle him. "El, you look like you've seen better days," Slick greeted me, flashing a wide, toothy grin that stretched across his face. He wiped the slick grease from his fingers onto a rag that was already stained and filthy. In front of him sat a large, heaping platter piled high with some kind of ribs, their charred edges glistening under the dim light. An unpleasant, malodorous stench wafted from the dish, mingling with the smoky air and making it difficult to breathe. "And it seems like you've crossed paths with a few more adversaries," I observed, my gaze lingering on the fresh, jagged scar etched across his cheek. It was a deep line, still red and slightly swollen, a testament to a recent encounter that hadn't gone in his favor. "I'm in need of some information regarding a break-in, specifically one involving an amulet." His eyes narrowed with a ravenous gleam. "That'll cost you," he crooned. His cruel smile stretched wider, almost splitting his face, fully revealing a menacing row of sharp, pointed teeth that seemed ready to devour anything in their path. I slid a few gold coins across the table, knowing full well the price of knowledge in Arcanea. "Magic signature of a shadow magician, used a stylized concealment rune. Ring any bells?" Slick deftly pocketed the coins, his fingers moving with practiced ease, while his eyes flitted cautiously around the dimly lit tavern, ensuring no prying eyes were upon him. "I might or might not have caught wind of a shadow mage who discreetly offloads his wares at auction," he murmured, his voice low and conspiratorial. "And I might even be acquainted with the buyer. There are whispers, you see, about a new player in the game, a mysterious figure who goes by the Magpie. This enigmatic individual deals in magical artifacts, particularly those that boast unique and peculiar properties." "Unique how?" I pressed, leaning in. "Power, El. The kind that can shift the balance in this city. If your amulet's on his list, it's not just a family heirloom. The Magpie. I'd have to file that name away for future use." "Where can I find him?" I inquired. Slick let out a chuckle, a sound reminiscent of coins clinking together in a velvet purse. "Rumor has it there's an auction taking place beneath the old clock tower, at the stroke of midnight tomorrow. If your amulet is going to be anywhere, that's where you'll catch sight of it. If the Magpie wins an item at auction, he can't be accused of buying stolen goods or arranging for their theft, now can he?" Slick said with an exaggerated wink over that sickening smile. I nodded, allowing my mind to drift as I absorbed the lively atmosphere of the tavern. The air was thick with laughter and the clinking of mugs, while salacious wenches of every imaginable race and complexion flitted about, their eyes glinting with mischief and allure. In shadowy corners, hulking brutes stood sentinel, their gazes sharp and vigilant, some watching over the tavern itself, others protecting the patrons they were hired to guard. It was a chaotic dance of lost souls and simmering villainy, a vivid tableau of Arcanea's underbelly. This city was a tapestry of stories, each thread more twisted and tangled than the last, weaving a narrative that was as captivating as it was dangerous. "Thanks, Slick," I said, standing up. "Keep your head down. Hate to see it detached in a back alley." "Always do," he shouted after me, his twisted face hung with confusion as I ambled out. His uncertainty shone on his misshapen face. He was obviously teetering between feeling threatened and flattered, and I relished him a silent grin in the chaos I left behind. The streets were darker now, the kind of darkness that seemed to seep into your soul. Simmering with the stench of the street refuse left too long in the sun, now becoming a feast for rats or worse. I pulled my coat tighter, feeling the weight of the city's gaze. Every step I took was probably watched, either by thugs, magic, or those who wielded both. As I navigated the labyrinthine depths of the Undercity, my shadow stretched long and thin, a solitary figure against the cobblestone canvas until it was joined by another. Ella emerged from the darkness like a specter, her steps as silent as the whisper of a forbidden spell. Her silhouette was distinct, her frame cloaked in a long, dark coat that seemed to absorb the light around it, making her blend into the night itself. Her hair, a cascade of night black, was pulled back into a tight braid, the only concession to the chaos of her surroundings being the few strands that danced around her face with each step. "Thought you might need some backup," she said, her voice a low murmur that cut through the ambient hum of the city's magical undercurrents, the night air amplifying each syllable with an ethereal echo. "Always welcome," I admitted, feeling the tension ease slightly with her presence. "We're looking for the magpie. Heard of him?" She nodded, her eyes scanning the shadows. "He's not just a collector, he's a manipulator. If he's after this amulet, it means he knows something about its power we don't." Above, the sky was an inky void, barely touched by the city's sparse, enchanted lights, which flickered with an otherworldly glow, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on the eyes. The occasional orb of conjured light floated past, a reminder that even in this dark place, magic was both a companion and a guide. Ella's eyes, sharp and penetrating, seemed to take in every detail, her gaze cutting through the gloom like a blade through silk. Her presence was not just physical, she carried with her an aura of knowledge, of arcane secrets whispered through centuries, making her as much a part of Arcanea's mystical landscape as the ancient stones themselves. We halted at a shadowy corner where the ancient cobblestones met in a jagged pattern, and there, perched on a rickety stool, sat an old, blind seer. Her hair was a tangled mass of silver, wild and untamed, framing a face etched with the lines of countless years and secrets. Her eyes, though robbed of sight, were milky pools that seemed to gaze into a world beyond our own. Despite her blindness, her senses were eerily sharp, as if she could see through the veils of magic that cloaked Arcanea. "Elredar Moon Whisper, Seeker of Shadows," she croaked, her voice like the rustle of old, dry leaves, carrying the weight of prophecy. Her gnarled hand reached out, her fingers trembling slightly in the cool night air. "Beware the light that leads to darker paths," she warned, her words hanging in the air like a spell, both a caution and a riddle. I reached into my pocket, my fingers finding a cool coin, which I tossed towards her. The coin spun in the dingy light, catching a fleeting glimmer before landing in her palm with a soft plop. Her fingers closed around it, but her gaze, or what felt like it, never left where I stood. "What light do you speak of, old one?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, respecting the sanctity of her words while seeking clarity. The seer's lips curled into a knowing smile, her voice dropping even lower. "The light that dazzles, that promises clarity and truth, often blinds you to the shadows where the real answers lurk. Seek not the obvious path, Elredar, for it is the one most watched." Ella, who had been quiet, stepped closer, her presence adding another layer of intensity to the conversation. "And what of the shadows, then?" she inquired, her tone respectful yet probing, understanding the seer's words held more than just a warning. "The shadows," the seer continued, her voice gaining a cryptic depth, "are your allies in this city of deceit. They will guide you if you learn to listen, to truly see. But remember, even in darkness, there are eyes watching." I nodded, absorbing the wisdom, the caution, and the veiled threats intertwined in her message. The coin in her hand was more than payment. It was an acknowledgement of the debt I owed to those who could navigate the complexities of Arcanea better than most. "Thank you," I murmured, knowing that her words would guide us, or at least, give us pause before we leaped into the unknown. As we moved away, the seer's voice followed us, a soft, haunting echo. "Remember, Elredar, in Arcanea, the light and the shadow are two sides of the same coin. Trust neither fully, but use both wisely." Ella's gaze lingered on the seer. Every word she speaks is a spell in itself, she murmured, her respect for the old magic evident. The city around seemed to close in as we walked. The buildings seemed to lean close like conspirators, their facades coated in a patina of age and magic. Arcanea's undercity was a tapestry of shadows and secrets, a place where the air itself felt charged with the remnants of spells, where every corner could hide a trap or a treasure. The streets here were narrow, twisting paths that seemed to lead nowhere and everywhere at once, lined with doors that might open to another dimension or merely to dilapidated rooms filled with forgotten dreams. Ambush! Ella hissed, her hands already weaving through the air, invoking a protective spell just as the first spell was cast towards us. A bolt of dark energy flew past, narrowly missing me but searing the wall beside us with a hiss. I drew my wand, casting a shield spell to deflect the next attack, but the attackers were numerous, and one managed to get a thrown dagger through. A sharp pain erupted in my side, the dagger slicing through my defenses, leaving a long gash in my side. I staggered but didn't fall, the adrenaline masking the severity of the wound for now. Ella, ever the quick thinker, reacted with a counterattack. She unleashed a burst of light from her palm, not to blind but to illuminate, revealing our attackers as they recoiled from the sudden exposure. They were masked, their faces obscured by dark hoods, but their movements betrayed a mix of surprise and panic. With a grunt of effort, ignoring the throbbing pain, I conjured a gust of wind, aiming it at our assailants. The spell sent them tumbling, giving us a moment's reprieve. "Elle, you're hurt!" Ella exclaimed, her worry evident as she quickly cast a minor healing spell, the light from her hands soothing the wound but not fully healing it. "We need to move, now!" I nodded, gritting my teeth against the pain. "Let's give them something to remember us by." Ella nodded, her lips moving in an incantation. From the shadows around us, spectral figures emerged, illusions of creatures from the city's darkest tales, their forms flickering with menace. The attackers, now facing what they thought were real threats, faltered, their confidence shaken. While they were engaged with nightmarish phantasm, we took the better part of valor running the other way. "Thanks, Ella," I managed, my voice strained, a few blocks later. "We need to get back to my office and regroup." With her support, we made our way back to my office, each step a reminder of the dangers lurking in Arcanea's shadows. Inside, Ella immediately set to work on my wound, her magic more thorough this time, knitting flesh and easing pain. "This isn't just about the amulet, Elle," she said while working, her fingers tracing the residual magic with a practiced touch. "There's a pattern here. A concealment spell this complex, it's not just to hide from mundane eyes. It's to evade other mages." I pulled out my notes, detailing the interactions with Officer Van and the clues from the shop, grimacing as I shifted my weight. "And the city watch is involved, or at least they're sniffing around. Which means someone powerful might be pulling strings." I nodded and reclined onto the cot, allowing the inky blackness to envelop me completely. My final glimpse was of Elle standing above me, her lips curled into a crooked smile that hinted at some unspoken amusement. It was a comforting image, a gentle beacon to hold on to as I surrendered to the depths of oblivion.